Hello and welcome to Saints Live. I'm Steve Forbes.
And I'm Kenzie Benali.
Well, it's just the 36-mile trip down the coast for Saints this evening as they take on Bournemouth in the Premier League. Southampton got their first point since August last time out against West Ham, while the Cherries are unbeaten in their last 6 games. Now, joining us to discuss all the build-up to the match, we have former Southampton captain Dean Hammond and NBC's lead soccer writer Joe Prince-Wright. Dean, lovely to see you again. Quite a quick turnaround for you both, though.
Great to see you guys as well, and looking forward to an evening game, which is always good under the lights, and a bit of a local derby. So looking forward to the game, Steve.
A derby. I don't know if we can use that word, Dean, but yeah, we'll let it slide now. And
Adam's not here, Steve, so we can.
and Joe, your backdrop has changed from the stands at Anfield to your lovely room in your home.
Yes, yeah, got some Halloween decorations up around me here. These aren't just cobwebs that I haven't been cleaning up. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, whatever we're calling it. Again, as a Saints fan, I'm still not quite sure what to call this game. I think it is a rivalry rather than a derby, but I'm just going to leave that there.
Do you know what? I'm so glad you clarified those cobwebs. I thought, my goodness, you could have got out the duster for us on Saints Live. But loving that festive look there, Joe. Well, let's jump straight into the early team news, because there's actually a few bits and pieces to discuss. The formal team news is coming away in 15 minutes' time. Of course, we do know Armel Bella-Kotchap is out after injuring his shoulder against West Ham just a few days ago. Theo Walcott and Ibrahima Diallo are slight doubts due to illness. Romeo Lavia, of course, is out, but hopefully expected to return to training this week. And Tino Livramento is a long-term absentee. So, Dean, with all of those things in mind, how do you see Southampton lining up to take on Bournemouth tonight?
Very similar, I think, Kenzie, following on the result and the performance at the weekend. I'd also like to see probably a little bit of consistency in selection. I think that's always helped Southampton in terms of their performances from the past under Ralph's leadership. So very similar, I think. I think they'll probably go with the 4-3-3 again. I think that worked in the first half. I think in a game like this, the basics is really, really important. Players with experience that maybe have played this fixture before is important as well. That they understand the importance of the game. I thought Che Adams was fantastic on the weekend. His hold-up play was brilliant. Had a few chances which he created himself, probably through his hard work. Again, Adam Armstrong, I thought, worked really, really hard on the wing and was creative in moments. So I quite like the balance of the team. Obviously, there's going to be a different defender coming in because Bella-Kotchap has been injured. But in terms of the shape, I think it would be very, very similar. In terms of the mindset, I think it would be similar. And it will almost be like for them players to go again. Go out and get another result, whether that's a draw, whether that's a win, build on the momentum. But I think consistency in selection will be important over the next few weeks in terms of players building a relationship and improving the performance week in and week out. Because you know me, I'm a big believer in if the performances are right, then the results will follow. And I think that's what needs to happen with Southampton.
Well, the result of the weekend against West Ham was one of the first positive ones in a while, Joe. So are you expecting any changes to line up after Saturday's game?
Similar to what Dean just said there, I think it's about continuity now and building those relationships across the pitch. Ralph's talked about it a lot, about not really having those consistency in team selection so far this season. And in previous Southampton teams, previous years, you kind of knew the 8 or 9 players each week that were guaranteed starters, and it hasn't been the case for most of the season. So maybe in the wide attacking areas, maybe like some Musa Djenepo or maybe Sekou Mara could come into those roles. I kind of want to see someone getting a bit closer to Che Adams. As Dean mentioned, he was excellent against West Ham, but at times he looked a little bit isolated. There weren't players getting as close to him as maybe there should be. So maybe that's one area where Saints could have a slightly more attacking lineup today and go with another player close to him. And then obviously we're going to see a different centre back, and it's then does Lianco come back in? Chalad Shah, does he start? It's kind of a flip of a coin for me in that regard. So I agree with Dean. Largely keep the same 11 right now. I think this is a pivotal point of the season when you need to look around and say, I know what the player next to me is going to be doing. I know everything about him. We have a good relationship. We're building it. It's a lot of new players in the Saints squad overall, and they really need minutes on the pitch together. So I'd keep a very similar starting lineup to the team that played against West Ham.
Well, as we've mentioned, we do know there will be a change in that centre-back position with Armel Bella-Kotchap joining the injury list on Sunday. Before we get to talking a bit more about how that injury occurred, here's what Ralph had to say and the update he gave in his recent press conference.
It doesn't look good for Armel because he will be definitely out on Wednesday. But it's not so sure in what direction we are going, if we need a surgery for him or if we do it without. I think he wants to try it without and mobilizing the shoulder and then coming back maybe in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know. Otherwise it would take longer. So this is definitely a loss for us again. So longer term injuries are sometimes not the best for a team that is looking for results.
Whilst you're talking about the injury news, is there any other concerns or doubts ahead of the Bournemouth game?
So far, we had only Theo out for the weekend because he was getting ill suddenly on Sunday morning, and I only heard that Ibra feels a little bit unwell today. So we will see what is happening in the session today and who is available.
Dean, we spoke on previous shows about the impressive season that Armel's been having at the club since he joined. So how big a blow is it to lose him now for a period of time?
In all honesty, Steve, it is a blow because he has been exceptional. He's been, in his performances, he's been fantastic all season. Actually, when it happened at the weekend, I thought he'd actually injured his knee in the way he fell. But luckily enough, it's only his own shoulder, which means I would guess it's a less serious injury. But he's been brilliant since he's come in. It's been fantastic recruitment from the football club. The way he's settled into the team, the way he's taken his opportunity. He's everything you want from a centre-half, really. He's aggressive, he's quick, he's good in possession of the ball, he's happy to receive the ball. For a player of such a young age, he looks like he leads on the pitch. He's very demanding. When you watch the game, he seems to always be communicating with his defenders or his teammates around him, demanding more, expecting more. And he's done very, very well. I've really enjoyed watching him play. And I think there's improvements in him. I like the fact that he's very aggressive in both box, whether he's defending or attack the ball. We've seen that he's had opportunities and chances to score goals as well, and it's not quite happened. But he's been excellent so far this season and a really, really good signing. So individually, he will be disappointed at the fact that he's got an injury now at this stage of the season, obviously for his club in Southampton, but with the World Cup coming up as well, he's just broken into the Germany squad and his form's been very, very good. So he can be very pleased the way he's performed. And sometimes these little breaks can help you. He gets a time to now just to step back and maybe analyse and reflect on what he has achieved and just watch the team from the sidelines. He'll have those conversations with the manager of what they expect from him now, what he can improve on, and just to give his body a little bit of a rest. So when he does come back, his comeback's fire and he comes back hungry. But he's been very, very impressive and I've enjoyed watching him. So he will be a miss. He really will be a miss.
Joe, Ralph's spoken about that possible need for surgery. I mean, Armel, I'm sure, is going to be keen to avoid that, particularly as Dean so rightly mentioned there is a chance that he could be heading to the World Cup with Germany.
Well, yeah, Kenzie, I think the timing of this injury is really challenging for Armel because it's up in the air, right? If he doesn't have the surgery and can kind of soldier on, then he could go to the World Cup. But then if you don't have that surgery, you risk maybe some longer term damage. And I'm sure Southampton as a club are just trying to help him make that decision and long term making sure this injury doesn't linger. So I think it's a risky decision for him to make, to potentially not have this surgery and then only be out for a shorter period. But then going to the World Cup, playing for Germany at a World Cup, I mean, he may not get this opportunity again in his career. I mean, he's very young, so hopefully he will, and he'll stay on these levels, make many, many tournaments for Germany in the future. But it's a big decision for him because he's just broken into that Germany team, just made his debut in the last international break. And at 20 years old, I mean, he's still very young for an international player. So I think it's difficult because, as Dean will tell you, a career for a footballer is very, very short, and you need to maybe take risks or take chances and hope that it will work out. But is this a risk worth taking for him? I'm not so sure. And obviously, he's got to weigh up his club against his country prospects. So difficult decision for someone so young to make. But as a Saints fan, hopefully he's out for the very shortest amount of time possible. I'd love to see it work out for him where this injury doesn't linger and he does go to the World Cup with Germany and then is back in a Saints shirt flying like he has been all season long, because he's been the standout player for Saints so far this season.
Yeah, fingers crossed it's not a lengthy spell out, but the question now turns to who's going to replace him in the lineup. Douye Shaletta-Sarr got the nod on Sunday, but Lianco's a contender too, Dean. How do you assess both those options?
Well, two good options, Steve. Two brilliant options for the manager. Shaletta-Sarr has come in and he's had some involvement, and I think he's done fine. He's done okay. He'll need time to adapt and get used to the Premier League, but he looks like he has the attributes to perform at this level. In terms of his size, I think he's 6'4". He's at a good age. I think he's 26 years of age, so he's coming into his prime. He's good aerially. He's comfortable in possession of the ball. He looks like he reads the game well. But one question mark is, could you play two centre-halves that are both left-footed together with Salisu on their left-hand side? So it's finding that balance, who is more comfortable on the right-hand side, because naturally left-footed players don't really enjoy using their right foot, where right-footed players can adapt and improve their left foot. But I think he can fill in for Bella Kotchap and be a good sign, and the club have invested good money in him. And Lianco, we know what Lianco is all about. An aggressive defender, loves defending, a real strong personality when he plays. He likes to win the ball. He's got that leadership, it looks, within the group, and calm on the ball in terms of he's happy in possession. But he hasn't quite found that consistent form yet to find a consistent run in the team, which is really important for any player. But you watch him play, and he plays on the edge, which is enjoyable to watch. But sometimes it can make you feel a little bit uneasy, a little bit anxious. But if you need a player that's going to defend and want to win the ball and press and be aggressive against the opposition, then he would be your pick. So the manager has options. So it'll be interesting to see what he goes for.
It will be interesting indeed. And before we get to that team news, Joe, can we just take a bit of time to reflect on the rest of the game on Sunday? Because overall you felt it was a point gained?
Yeah, absolutely a point gained. I mean, Saints were very good in the first half, but then West Ham came on very strong in the second half, which they always tend to do as a team. But as a Saints fan, if you'd have said to me, take a point before the game against West Ham, I would have taken that hands down. And they were hanging on at the end, though, Saints. And I think, as we're seeing, some great opportunities in the first half. Had Saints been a bit more clinical, they could have been 2 or 3 ahead at half time. But overall, draw was a very good result and gives Saints a platform to go to Bournemouth today and kind of take that big step forward if they get a win. So for me, though, it just kind of really summed up Saints' season so far, this 90 minutes. They've been able to really string together a good performance for an entire 90 minutes. There's been a good 45 here, good 45 there. And that really is to be expected. Such a young squad, a lot of new players coming in. And they're still trying to develop their own identity as a team. You can see Ralph is changing the formation a lot. Players are coming in and out of the team. And I think patience is just needed. I mean, football fans aren't famous for that, and especially the end to last season, the way it went for Southampton. There's an urgency to start this season well, but a lot of really good young players, but they need some time. But let's just go right to the chase. West Ham are a very good team. They'll be challenging for Europe. Spent big money this summer on some good players. Overall, I think it was a good point for Southampton at the weekend.
Yeah, it certainly was. Well, we've got just a matter of seconds until the team news comes in, but before it does, we'll get to some of the comments that have come through on our social channels. Steve Vincent says, need to win this game tonight. Come on, Southampton. Toby also says, a must-win game today. Come on, you Saints. And Jamie Lloyd also says, it's a must-win game.
Well, there you go. Always great to hear from the fans. Do make sure you keep those coming into us. But for now, we can bring you the team news. Bournemouth unchanged, actually, from their 2-2 draw at Fulham on Saturday. But, of course, we're all here for the Southampton starting 11. The one change, this won't come as a surprise to any of you. Saleta Sarr coming in for the injured Bella Kotchap. Otherwise, the same team we saw at the weekend. So let's run through that in full then, shall we? In goal, it's Gavin Bazunu. The back four, Carl Walker-Peters, Douye Saleta Sarr, Mohamed Salisu and Roman Perraud. In the middle, it's our captain, James Ward-Prowse, and he's alongside Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Moy Elianusi. And the Southampton attack is made up of Joe Aribo, Shay Adams and Adam Armstrong. The Southampton substitutes then, Alex McCarthy, Lianco, Juan Larios, Ibrahima Diallo, Musa Gineppo, Stuart Armstrong, Sam Edozie, Theo Walcott and Sekou Mara. Dean, let's come to you then for your thoughts. That's kind of what we were expecting, wasn't it? You said you were thinking we'd stick with the same team in that 4-3-3 formation. So how are you feeling now that that's been confirmed?
Yeah, we've got what we asked for, Kenzie, really, which is good, that consistency, and the manager has obviously seen enough from the weekend in the performance to go with a very, very similar team. Saleta Sarr coming in, I think, is a sensible decision. He has the experience. He's an international. And he wanted his stake a claim and have a consistent run in the team. And I think it's good. And I think from this team selection, it's just about getting the better players within the game more. James Ward-Prowse, he's such a good player and such an influential player in this Southampton team. We want to see him on the ball more. We want to see him in positions where he can affect the game in terms of attacking positions. So Maitland-Niles has got an important role to play tonight to protect that back four and give that stability there. Again, Carl Walker-Peters, can we get him more involved in the game? Can we get him higher up the pitch? Which I think if we do, it allows Joe Aribo to go more centrally, to have an impact on the game. So that's what I mean about building relationships and building understandings between the players, that you can rely on someone's movement. You can understand where someone's going to be on the pitch without even looking. Sometimes there's an instinct because you've built that trust within the group, and I think that's what the manager's trying to do again. Go with a consistent selection, allow them to play together more, build on that performance, build on that result, and hopefully they'll take that into the game tonight.
Yeah, that's it, Joe. As we've said, a consistent starting 11 there. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's what's needed. I think if you look at all teams that are successful in the world, then usually week in, week out what the starting 11 is going to be. And hopefully Saints have got to that point now. Obviously, the one change is forced as well. So I think it shows you that Ralph, especially with the first 45 minutes against West Ham, was very happy with that and would like to see that replicated tonight against Bournemouth. And agree with what Dean said there, getting the fullbacks higher up the pitch as soon as possible. We saw Roman Perraud score against West Ham. Carl Walker-Peters was heavily involved again in the first half a lot when they did play their best football. And just being a bit more direct and brave to play the ball down the channels to Shay Adams. And then I want to see Joe Aribo and Adam Armstrong just cutting inside and getting as central as they can, as early as they can, because I think getting players further up the pitch and supporting Shay is going to be crucial when he kind of is just playing as that lone forward. So, yeah, like the lineup, like the continuity, and that to me suggests that Ralph now knows what his best starting lineup is, and hopefully that's a very good thing moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before we move on, we'll get some more comments from you, the fans watching at home. Steve Townsend on YouTube has said Saints need to start strong and finish even stronger. The win is for the taking. Robbie Richards says he thinks it's going to be 3-1 to Southampton. Let's kickstart a winning streak. I've also got Mark Reeves saying he's feeling good today. We got this. Jarko Hard, I hope I've spelt that or said that, pronounced that correctly. He's saying hello from Finland. Come on, you Saints. Vishnal has said he's liking the lineup. That's coming in from YouTube. And then a last one here on YouTube from Red and White, who said, this is not a rivalry or a derby, to be fair. He's not bothered about Bournemouth. Always wanted them to do well, just not against us or at our expense in the league.
I've got to say, I actually share his feelings on that. I agree with that comment.
Dean, I'm going to bring you back a little bit to last week and your views, because I think our director has a bit of a bone to pick with you. You touched a nerve. Just in regards to the goal that gave Southampton the lead against West Ham, it was a bit contentious with Carl Walker-Peters' throw-in. I don't think you agreed with it at the time, or with potentially the rules. So we've got what the law says, which is the thrower must have part of each foot on the touchline or on the ground outside the touchline. So we think that even though Carl Walker-Peters' foot was on the pitch, that he still had a part of his foot, as you can see there, touching the line. So, not breaking the rules, Dean. Now I've explained that to you. Is your view any different?
Well, it's always nice to learn something new, Steve. And I played the game. I don't. Doesn't mean I knew the rules, to be honest. And I'd always try and bend the rules myself. So, look, if it ends in Southampton scoring a goal, I'm all for it. So, look, obviously, it went to the VAR. They reviewed it. And they were quite happy with it, which at the time, like I say, surprised me, because I thought it was going to be given as a foul throw, because my understanding was he needed both feet on the floor and behind the line. So there you go, you learn something new, which is good. But it resulted in a goal for Southampton, which I think they deserved at the time. And I think the appeals from the West Ham players was more the fact to do with the positioning of the referee and the way that he didn't allow Bowen to receive the ball. But you look at the goal, Souček needs to do better with the clearance. If I was Bowen, I'd be pushing the referee out of the way to get to the ball. I wouldn't just allow Perro to get to the ball. But again, there was a few moments in the first half where Southampton caused West Ham problems from just simple throw-ins. You know, getting behind them, getting the ball to feed, the ball going in behind, the winning runs of Che Adams. And this was just another example of it. And Joe touched on it a minute ago. The more Southampton can get their fullbacks involved in the game, the more creative they'll be, the higher up they'll play, the more they'll press and win the ball. And Perro's a very, very good finisher. You know, when he gets in those positions, he can strike the ball very, very well. He has a little bit of luck. But I'm happy to be wrong on that occasion, Steve. Very, very happy.
Well, Joe, Dean just very briefly touched on Che Adams there. Let's talk a bit more about his performance on Sunday. You know, he had some good opportunities and he did show some good hold-up play as well. So what did you make of his overall contributions?
He was a nuisance, Kenzie. I think it caused so many problems with his pace, power, direct running in behind. Saints were clipping it down on that inside right channel to him all the time. And, when the chances fell his way, he just felt he kind of rushed him a little bit, which is understandable. He hasn't, after that double at Leicester, he hasn't scored in his last 7 Premier League games now. So I think he was just a bit too eager maybe to try and get the chances away, or maybe thinking about it just a little bit too much. But, he was involved in Saints' goal. He was a presence. He helped him stay high up the pitch in that first half. And I think he does this so well, right? When he just can stretch defenders, get in behind. And as I see in here for the goal, hold-up play, excellent. And just need more players to get around him. I mentioned it there with Aribo and Adam Armstrong tonight. Need to get players around him to work off those knockdowns and flicks. We saw it all the time when, Danny Ings was playing up with him a few years ago. I mean, great combination, great play, understanding. And they both reap the benefits of that kind of system. So Che isn't the most natural finisher in the world, but he does so much great work off the ball. Leads the line well, as we saw there, and he can score spectacular goals as well. So I think the one area where he really needs to improve his game is when he gets in on goal, like we saw there against West Ham. It's taking that extra second, or maybe taking the shot early and just catching defenders and goalkeepers off guard a little bit. But he's looking really sharp. I think it's the case of when he's hot, these goals seem to come in batches for him. So hopefully he can get on another run tonight, and then the rest takes care of itself, right? I mean, goal scorers will tell you, as soon as one goes in off their backside or whatever, they get confidence and they keep flowing. And I think it is really important for Che to have players around him like Armstrong, Aribo, El Yunusi. Just get players in and around, because he'll win balls, he'll win flick-ons, he'll run in behind, and he'll create a lot of chaos for defenders. And most Premier League defenders, I think, when they walk off the pitch after playing against Che Adams, they will have had a very, very tough 90 minutes.
Yeah, we definitely want to see that ketchup bottle fully shook tonight. Turning our attention to tonight's game, what have you made of the job that Gary O'Neill's done at the Vitality, Dean, since replacing Scott Parker? Because Bournemouth are unbeaten in 6 now.
In all honesty, Steve, it's been pretty incredible, really. He took charge when they lost 9-0 at Liverpool. There's 6 games unbeaten. I think it's 2 wins and 4 draws. And the way he's changed the mentality, the way he's raised the mood at the club, because the players were receiving a lot of criticism. The players were being questioned whether they were good enough for this level again. And that's difficult to take sometimes. So he looks like he's got good man management skills. I know his assistant manager really, really well in Tommy Alfick. I played with Tommy, and Tommy is so bubbly, so enthusiastic, loves football, and he would have been a big part in terms of raising in that mood. But I was just looking at the stats. You know, they've scored 16. They've conceded 16 goals in their first 4 games, and now they're not conceding goals. I think they've had a couple of clean sheets. They're scoring more goals. They're playing on the front foot. They're enthusiastic. They're a young team. And Gary O'Neill, I've played against him a few times. He's a committed character. He's a leader. He's had promotions in his career himself as a player. He's played at the highest level, so he had the respect of the players. So he's done a great job. Really, really good job. And the one thing he's had, and I've heard this from a good source, that he was told that he was going to get 10 to 12 games. He wasn't just on a 1-game basis. So, which would have brought a bit of calmness to the group, and probably some calmness in his approach, that he'd be able to implement his own ideas, maybe tweak with the formation, tweak with the personnel, that he was going to get some time to maybe make it into his own team. And I think that's helped. So it's been clever leadership and management from the whole club, and they've done very well over the last 6 games.
Well, let's talk about our last visit to Bournemouth. That was in the FA Cup back in March 2021. I mean, Joe, a 3-0 win would be pretty nice this evening. We'd certainly take that. But what did you remember from that evening?
Yeah, obviously, brilliant attacking display from Saints. Big game in the Cup, quarter-final. Nathan Redmond was pretty much unplayable in this game. I mean, at the heart of everything good Saints did, Shea Adams, Redmond, Stuart Armstrong, all absolutely flying. And, you know, very direct performance. Every time they got the ball, we're seeing it here, just running straight at Bournemouth's defenders, scaring the life out of them. And obviously Bournemouth at that point had just dropped down to the Championship, hadn't they, after relegation. So there was a little bit of a gap in quality at that point between the two squads. And you could really see it because Saints were clinical. I mean, this goal from Redmond, sensational. It was a screaming shoot, and he just kept running further away from the goal, but then a wonderful finish back across goal. And yeah, Saints were deserved winners. And this is what we can see under Ralph Hasenhüttl over the years, had some really, really good cup runs. And Bournemouth just really couldn't live with them on this day. So yeah, and looking at the lineup, there's a lot of the current Saints team who played in this game. So they'll have fond memories of playing against Bournemouth, against a lot of these Bournemouth players. I know their teams changed slightly, but there's still a few players around from these days as well. So hopefully that bodes well for Saints. And as a fan, I remember going to a few games at the Vitality and seeing Saints get some big wins when Claude Puel was in charge a few years ago. Obviously, Dean Hammond and the great goal he scored there at the Vitality in those big promotion seasons. So over the years, it's been a pretty happy hunting ground for Saints. So hopefully that continues tonight.
Now, Southampton obviously slipped into the relegation zone over the weekend. That's the first time since September 2020 that the Saints have been in the bottom 3. Dean, is that the sort of thing that's actually going to get mentioned in the dressing room at this moment in time, or is it still just too early in the season for that to be taken seriously?
I think it is too early in the season to really consider the position of it. Southampton maybe being in a relegation battle because of their position. But I'm pretty sure it will be mentioned to the players as a motivator, not as a negative, not as a criticism, not trying to shame the players, but as a motivator for this game and to just express that we're better than this. You know, we can be better than this. We can get better results than this. We can have more points than this. We've shown that over a period of time. So you kind of just have to use these moments to your advantage, whether that will be the manager using that, whether that will be certain experienced players, maybe just a quiet word with other players, again, just mentioning the importance of the game, the importance of the position, especially with The next 4 or 5 games coming up, and then the 6-7 week break to the World Cup. Every point now is really, really important before that break. So I'm sure it will be mentioned, Steve, but I don't think it's a major thing at the moment, really, because the league is so very, very tight. With a couple of wins, you suddenly shoot up a few positions and everything looks very, very different. But it will be mentioned. And I can only go on my experience, what it would have been like when I was in the dressing room. And it would have been talked about and it would have been mentioned, but used as a motivator to really express the importance of the next game. And that is tonight against Bournemouth.
Yeah, Joe, as Dean said there, a couple of good results and suddenly the picture of the league is completely different. A win tonight could see Southampton move up 5 or 6 places. So just how important would 3 points be, looking ahead in particular, with a few tricky games around the corner too?
Kenzie, it's going to be so important. As I said before, new team, a lot of young players are still building an identity and confidence. So obviously getting a big win tonight will definitely help with that and that process and just move it along a bit further. But a win tonight is just essential. I mean, I would put this in the must-win category. When you look at the other games coming up between now and the World Cup break, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Liverpool, those are all tough games. I'm not saying Bournemouth isn't tough. They're on a good run of form, but out of those 5 games, you would say that's the most winnable. And they need to make the most of this opportunity. I mean, tonight is huge for the manager, for the players, for belief going forward. I'd probably go even as far as saying this could potentially be season defining. I think if you win tonight, then it could build some momentum and positivity that could really lift you up the table. But the opposite, it could have a major impact considering the tough games coming up before the World Cup break as well. So it's so tight in the Premier League. Dean mentioned it there, You get one win, you're flying at the table. You lose, you're back towards the relegation zone. It's still quite early in the season, especially with the break we're going to be having as well. And I think Saints are probably, 2 or 3 points off where they probably deserve to be given the performances so far this season. So a win tonight would kind of just level that off and put them in a position where they probably would have a very good points return for the performances they put in and a fair one. So yeah, you can't understate the importance of tonight's game at Bournemouth.
Well, there's less than 45 minutes to go until kick-off at the Vitality, so it's about time we get both of your final thoughts and indeed score predictions. Dean, Joe's calling this a must-win and season-defining. Do you share the same thoughts, and what do you think the score's going to be?
I completely understand what Joe's saying. Yes, it could be. It definitely could be in terms of morale, maybe, not even in terms of position and points. But I'm feeling good about tonight. I am. I think, like I say, Southampton concentrate on themselves and play with that energy and that desire and that resilience they showed, especially in the first half of the weekend. I think they'll have more than enough to beat Bournemouth tonight. But it will be a tough game. It will be, because Bournemouth are in a really good position themselves in terms of their form, the results they've picked up. There seems to be a freshness about them. There seems to be a fearless approach about them. And there seems to be a real determination about them, because, even when they've had setbacks, I think they were 2-0 down against Nottingham Forest and came back to win the game. So they've kind of got this never die attitude, which comes with younger players when they're confident. So it's going to be a tough task, but I'm going to go for a good contest, but a 2-1 Southampton win.
Okay, and Joe, we know your thoughts now on the magnitude of the event, but how do you think the game's going to go?
It's going to be really tight, Steve. I think Bournemouth are just quite a nasty team to play against. They fly into challenges. I mean, they've got great belief and confidence and spirit in the group, being 2-0 down at Forest and come back and winning that one. We saw them battling against Fulham at the weekend, drawing a lot of games. But something in me just says that Saints' star attackers, the likes of Aribo, Shea Adams, are really going to put in a big performance tonight, and Ward-Prowse as well, understanding whether it's a rivalry or derby or not, how important this game is in the season and the context of the season. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Saints, and those Saints fans travelling all the way back across the New Forest, that huge distance, will be very happy in a few hours' time.
Oh, well, I certainly like the sound of that one. Fingers crossed that one comes true. Joe, Dean, thanks ever so much for your insight as always. We look forward to welcoming you back after the game. Huge thanks as well to you for joining us here on Saints Live. Kickoff is, of course, at 7:30. As we say, just the short trip to the Vitality Stadium where that's all getting underway shortly. Do make sure you join us after the game. We'll be back with you to talk about all of the match's major talking points. We'll see you then.
Bye for now.